mental illness today, especially with our younger people, is almost epidemic proportions. And it's not going to go away. So I think it's really important for us to put it out there and keep talking about it.
The person I'm really proud of when it comes to this topic in sports is Kevin Love. For the people who don't know his story, Kevin was he plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's a basketball player. He was in a game against the Atlanta Hawks, and on that day he just wasn't feeling right. And got to the point where in the second half he literally ran off the court during a timeout break, went into the locker room, and fell to the floor. He thought he was having a heart attack, and it turns out it wasn't a heart attack. It was an anxiety attack. And he was quite relieved to know that he didn't have a heart problem. But one of the things that really bothered him was when he figured out it was an anxiety attack, he was relieved to know that nobody had heard that. And he started thinking about, well, why is it that I don't want people to know that I had this anxiety attack? And that sort of propelled him to seek help and to be open about it and not bury it. And you're a former athlete, you played in the NFL. So in many places, this is the case, but I think in a professional sports locker room especially, this idea of needing to project strength, and if you admit to any kind of things like this, it could be perceived as a weakness, and being soft is the term you'll hear. Talk about first of all, how courageous it was for him to admit that he had something that he was facing.
As a pro athlete, unbelievably courageous, and mental illness is really not about toughness, but that's the mask we wear, right? As a professional athlete. Right. We can overcome anything. We're super tough. We can play through injury. It's not about being soft. It's about being real with what's going on with ourselves. It's about being vulnerable. It's about being vulnerable. And that is real strength.
Courage, too.
Yes.
That takes great courage. Like, it's easy to, if you hold it in and don't want to talk about it, A, you're making yourself worse. B, you're not helping anybody else, because by talking about it, you do help other people. And C, you're not really showing courage because you're too afraid to, what are people going to think if they know I'm having an issue here?
Well, it's real easy with the body, right? And you go out there and tweak a knee, tweak an ankle, someone, pokes you in the eye, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You say, oh, of course, yeah, he's injured. He can't play for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, or season, out for the year, maybe an ACL tear.
Let me give you an example. So I tore my Achilles tendon, and one of the things I literally took pride in, was my surgery scars. So I'm on the table taking pictures and texting my buddies, look at this, because it was almost like a badge of honor that I got hurt on the field. And I have this gruesome scar on the back of my heel. I don't think that I would have been texting pictures of myself at a therapist's office if I was in there asking for mental help, because we don't do that.
No, we don't do that. Yeah, because we live in a seeing is believing culture. If I see it, okay, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I saw Jack get injured. Wow, I saw him went down like he got shot by a shotgun, from 50 yards away. But we should be in a culture of believing is seeing, right? So you can't see the mind. Right. So we don't know what's going on inside each of our minds. We don't. But the individual does. The individual does. And so that's the stigma. That's the issue, because the population can't wrap their head around.
I'm glad you brought that up. I hadn't thought of it that way, because there's two parts to it. It's one, having the courage to acknowledge it. And the second part of it is the person who's receiving that message from somebody is to believe them. If they're telling you that they're hurting, it's not like something that you can just wish away, or, oh, maybe you're just having a bad day, you're having a little stress, don't worry about it. It took them courage to admit to you that they're having a hard time. Respond accordingly and help them accordingly, and don't just dismiss it.
Yeah, because with there's trust involved. I'm trusting that you're telling me the truth, and you're not wussing out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Which is the term that athletes would use. Get tough, be tough, be a man. Right. Men aren't supposed to show emotions, right? But by the way, I'm telling you here right now, we need to show emotion. Yeah. We need to be honest with ourselves. Because, hey, if this continues, if you have an issue, who knows what it can lead to? And suicide has become a major issue in our society, especially with young, because of the stresses and other factors involved. And it just happens, and it's so sad because you hear parents not even know any indication that was going to happen. All of a sudden,
Right.
their child is no longer here on this planet.
Right. Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you got to listen. We got to be more
gotta listen. And we gotta
open
talk.
and talk. We got to be more forthcoming. No judgment. We got to be able to put it out there. We have to have dialogue about it.
And if you live your life where it's greater than yourself, and you want to give back to society, what greater way to give back than set an example to show that it's okay to say I'm hurting, because what you're doing is not only helping yourself, you're saving somebody else's life. And I'll give you an example in Kevin Love's story is DeMarcus DeRozan, who played ball at USC, and
Yes.
Kevin played at UCLA.
Right.
It's kind of ironic there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that made Kevin Love feel okay about coming out with what he was going through was he read DeMarcus DeRozan had done an interview in Toronto talking about having a little bit of issues with depression. And seeing that gave Kevin the courage to go out and start talking about himself. Kevin actually now has taken it to the next level, where he started an entire foundation called the Love Foundation. And so if you think about the ripple effect, DeMarcus DeRozan has the courage to acknowledge depression. Kevin Love reads about it, going through it himself, and now he starts a foundation which will guarantee you save people's lives. So DeMarcus doing that one interview where he acknowledges his pain is going to save lots and lots of people's lives because of the ripple effect.
Well, and that's what it's all about, right?
That's what it's all about.
And then that's what could come from somebody taking a courageous step and being okay. You got to be really secure with yourself
Yeah.
to come forward with that.
100%.
You got to have high self-esteem, have it together to be able to come forward with, hey, I'm not right. I'm not 100% right. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is.
Right.
Or I've had these bouts. I've had these questions. I've had these doubts.
Yeah, and again, you're gonna lead to your own betterment, but you will help other people. Another one, while we're talking about sports, was at the Olympics, the last Olympics. Simone Biles had what they call the yips, where she just got a mental block and would not be able to complete her routine.
Which is a dangerous thing, by the way.
Well, you could break your neck, you could die if you land on your head while you're flipping around in the sky. So here's the thing. She goes into the locker room and she comes back out and she cheers on her teammates. Now, what would have been the cowardly thing to do? She could have had a trainer wrap her ankle up in some tape and say, oh man, I sprained my ankle, I can't compete anymore. She didn't do that. She faced exactly what she was going up against, acknowledged it, went out there and cheered for her teammates and gave them pep talks and said, look, I can't do this right now. I can't, but I'll be here to help you do it. And by doing that, she showed a courage, and she made it okay to acknowledge when we're having a hard time and not just sweep it under the rug like I think previous generations would have probably done.
And she subjected herself to tremendous judgment and criticism by the
100%,
population.
100%. I think at one point, Simone Quits was like trending on Twitter, like calling her a quitter.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, you
Greatest gymnast of all time, potentially, right?
You have not been in the arena if you're sitting up in the peanut gallery calling her a quitter, because you have no idea what you're like. That's just that pissed me off, actually.
Yeah. Well, and most people haven't been in the arena.
Right.
To understand what the Olympics, that level of competition, the stresses involved, and the desire to perform well, and the pressure to perform well, to represent your country, and try and come away with a gold medal. That's just immense in that moment, right? And all the years, think about all the years of preparation for that one moment. And here she had the courage to come forward and say, hey, I'm not right. Something's wrong with me.
Right. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, I'm proud of her. And it's interesting. We talk about in our country, the greatest generation were those men who went off and fought in World War II. And they are the greatest generation. What they sacrificed for our country and for the world is unbelievable. But they didn't come back and talk about it. They came back and held it in and had a lot of pain for many years because they weren't allowed to. It wasn't part of the society then to talk about it.
No.
So I would challenge this generation right now coming up to, in their own way, be the greatest generation, where they show the courage to talk about these things because of the lives they're going to save if they have the willingness to go out and say, hey, you know what, I'm not quite right, and here's what's going on with me, and I'm going to get better. And now when I get better, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to help other people do the same thing.
It's a great point, Jack. What a great legacy that would be.
Yeah.
For this and I think this generation, the younger generation, is more oriented that way.
I agree 100%.
They're not necessarily following in line with what their parents did, how they did what they did, and grandparents and so on. So I think it's exciting to see what lies ahead for this generation. They know what they want. And some people like us, our generation is like, well, they're like entitled. They want this, they want that. You know, but at least they're voicing themselves out there to realize that they know what they want and they're okay with that.
Right.
So let's let them be on their path. And I mean, there's some things we can do, Jack, on you know, if we're not quite right, we've talked about them in the past, and developing, you know, having a gratitude journal and meditating and breathing techniques and things of that nature. And those are things like, we're a little off or whatever. But in these situations where you know when something's wrong with you, you really know when something's wrong with you. And when it is, you need to seek professional help. You need to get help from others that are designed to walk you through this and get you back on track.
Yeah, and there's nothing better you can do for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for the world. Because again, I'll keep reiterating this. When you do it, you're setting an example for somebody else to do it. So you're not only helping yourself, you're helping the next guy and the next one and the next one who follow your path, because they see that it's okay because you had the courage to do it.
Yeah, and what greater legacy to leave?
There is none. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
This is the part where we're supposed to tell people to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay, will you please do that then? I mean,
Yeah.
if you enjoy it,
Yeah.
please do.
And if you don't, do it anyways, because we need your help.
We do.
Also, we have a website called GameChangeNation.com. Just go there and subscribe and you'll get tons of free content.
And what we're really trying to do is create a community of people that love sports.
Yep.
And the great lessons that we learn from sports, but we want to hear from you.
We do. So we're going to have a bunch of social media pages, from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. Instagram, I probably already said all of them. Please join them and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and we wrote a book.
Oh,
Forgot about that.
that.
The book is called Through the Tunnel. It's available on Amazon now. If you go straight down here to this link that you can see below us, you will be able to purchase it. We'd love it if you could do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.